Welcome to the end of Cola. We only have a couple chapters left, so we're gonna read them. 22 to 27. Are you ready? Let's go. What do the residents of Gensokyo think of the brilliance raining down from far away? While awaiting the release of the new book, Touhou Gumonshiki, perfect memento in strict sense, Ishinsha. Here is a story where Reimu and Marissa view a meteor shower at Cordindo. To all the fans that can't wait for the book as well, why don't we all read this issue's Cordindo and think about the mysteries of space? Whoa. There are aliens up there. Hold on. Allow me to find the cover image. I'm looking. Can't find it. Found it. Here you go. There you go. Meteor shower. Look at them Tims, bruh. Alright. Let us begin. The universe the yokai saw. Ah, there goes 2 in a row. Yeah, just one more to make 10. The excited voices of the two rang outside inside the darkened shop. Soon it'll be midnight, a time when crying children had long quieted down, but neither Raymond nor Marissa had done so. 2 of them had taken up occupancy in my store and turned off all the lights. I, unable to read a book or write in my journal, moved over to where they were, relying on a little bit of the moonlight coming in from the window. Really, I don't know what to do with you two. Haven't you had enough? The so-called meteor showers aren't exactly rare, you know. What are you talking about? You said it yourself, didn't you? Tonight the shooting stars will be amazing. I'm sure more than 100 will fall. I really do think about 100 will fall, but you don't intend to watch all of them, do you? You bet, I even got over 100 wishes ready to go. Noon inside Cordindo. The day when both Reimu and Marissa came to appreciate meteor showers. I had placed a mysterious newly acquired item on top of my desk, gazing at it. I say it as a newly acquired item, but the item itself was old and a bit dirty. The parts made of metal had spots of rust here and there as well. That item was made of a ball the size of a large round watermelon, and 4 legs supporting it. The ball was made of metal, but it was a very odd form. There were a number of thin rings fashioned from metal connected together that looked like they were used for measurement. They formed a sphere that air could easily pass through, like a throwing ball made out of bamboo. Furthermore, each of the metal rings could rotate freely while the legs kept everything else in place. Unfortunately, a few of the metal rings had rusted and turned very smoothly. It wouldn't make for suitable merchandise in this condition, so I thought I'd somehow try to fix it myself. What's with this weird hollow globe? It isn't a globe, Marissa, and when did you come in? I thought maybe a hole had opened up in the earth. Marissa asked if it wasn't a globe, then just what was it? A globe is a model of the Earth. The humans living in Gensokyo don't know much about the planet they live on. That is because Gensokyo is in a small area of the mountains in a small part of Japan, which is itself a small part of the world, and it's not a place one can easily leave. That said, it's not like outside information or tools aren't able to find their way in. A globe is one of the various tools that have been washed in from the outside world. And so we've been able to learn about the Earth we live on. Strictly speaking, while they understand knowledge down to the smallest places here, the human residents of Gensokyo and the land they live in isn't quite connected with the knowledge of the Earth. For example, if you were to say here that a hole opened up in the Earth, they would easily believe you. Still, though this tool looked like a globe, it was certainly not. It is a tool to measure objects that, though are always close to Gensokyo, we still don't know much about, the same as the Earth. This is a tool called an armillary sphere. If a globe is a tool used to provide information about the Earth, an armillary sphere is used to provide information about space. While an armillary sphere is an unusually complicated tool, all it is used for is to measure the position of the stars. However, there's a reason for this complexity. Though it appears that the stars are just floating in the sky, correctly measuring this position is difficult. It's not something you can measure absolutely, like how the ground you see from far away has mountains and forests giving varying degrees of height. While lines can be drawn between stars, and there may have fundamental stars that don't move and are simpler to calculate, that is still mere speculation. Their positions are unreachable. And observing stars that exist apart from the fundamental ones have been long troubled many astronomers. In order to resolve that problem, the armillary sphere couldn't have been made without being complicated. So, how do you use this thing? Well, that's what I'm investigating now. Ah, so you don't know either. Well, yeah, that's how it always is. I felt she was making a fool of me, but it's true, so I couldn't deny it. Well, I imagine this is how you'd use it. While looking at a star through the tube in the middle, you match up the rotating sphere with the star and take a reading from the scale of something written here. I just realized that there were strange characters written on the object. What I thought was a scale or something was in a simple numbered system. There's a possibility that these strange characters broaden the usefulness of the armillary sphere. What, something on that ring? There certainly is. I thought for sure that there was a tool from the outside world, but the characters written here could overturn that theory. Where, can I see? Can't read it. Well, that was fast. Strange characters written on the armillary sphere were the names of the constellations. Written here is Yuki Nudois, Kaimbayos, Bashonoseos. They appear to be the names of constellations to me. What's with that? They must be some crazy constellations, aren't they? There's more to the problem than that. I haven't heard of these constellations either. Well, it might just be nothing more than a list of ridiculous constellation names. They would be strange in and of itself, but even if it were the case, these constellation names, Tenomeos, Surabeotoshias, Great Tenguias, aren't those all the names of yokai? The constellations we know, and this probably applies not only to the humans against Sokyo, but the humans from the outside world too, mostly came from the continent. They have a long history, being made before Gensokyo became separated from the outside world. Furthermore, there are still some constellations originally from ancient Japan, but few remain now. The Japanese ones were simply stars themselves rather than interconnecting lines between them, and were given names and worshipped. Well, at least that's what I'd always thought, but after looking at this armillary sphere, I'll probably have to rethink my assessment. It's hard to think that constellations with the names of yokai would come over from the continent. If Japan named them this many constellations, it wouldn't be strange to think Japanese astronomy has advanced considerably. However, all of them are yokai names. If this was the work of Japanese astronomy, they should have used more names from gods or heroes. If you think of it that way, rather than Japanese astronomy, it is possible this armillary sphere is not a tool of the outside world, but instead, this is probably a yokai armillary sphere. What? Yokai have been living for thousands of years, so it wouldn't be strange if they had their own astronomical knowledge. The yokai have many things that can put human technology to shame. They must have created their own system of astronomy as well, instead of using the humans. It's possible to think that the astronomy used by humans is in fact a field of study thought up by yokai. Additionally, it is said that over 1,000 years in the past, yokai traveled to the moon. At that time, humans wouldn't have yet known the meaning of the moon and stars. For that reason alone, yokai astronomy must be excellent. The moon is an important heavenly body for yokai, holding festivals on days when the full moon is full and calming down during the new moon. It's easy to imagine the yokai study of the moon has greatly advanced. However, the yokai names of constellations on this armillary sphere suggest that not only is their study of the moon very extensive, but of the stars as well. For example, the Milky Way is called the Oni God's Way, and there the sake of Oni flows to Earth. Close to that, the extremely bright Orion's belt is called by yokai the Ibuki Doji's belt, and indicates the Ibuki Doji, 3 power of harmony, finite and infinite. Because of the planet's brightness and the inconsistent movement, they are called Tengu stars. They move here and there and can be read as an existence that disrupts the orbit of other yokai. There are 6 situations so far. Situations. I see 7 and 8. Okay. Comets have also recorded within the yokai constellations. Even the comet cycles have been researched. Since yokai can live for a long time, you can say it's easier for them to observe than humans. Comets are called detested or condemned stars because they are apparently bad omens that threaten yokai society. The one written with the largest characters is Tenryu's. This is the so-called Big Dipper. Tenryu also always stares at one point and looks as if it might take flight at any time. The star at the point is Polaris, the North Star. In yokai constellations, Polaris is the unmoving star. Basically, it is the face of the unmoving Lord of Night, Fudo-sun, an embodiment of Dainichi Nyorai, the Buddha of the Sun. Though it goes without saying, Dainichi Nyorai is an avatar of the sun that renders yokai powers ineffective. In Night World, he is said to become Polaris and consume yokai power in order to prevent their festivals from getting out of hand. It is said that Tenryu is plotting to eat Fudo-sun, Polaris, to control the sky, both day and night. According to the records, it is prophesied that after a few thousand years, Tenryu will move, and then yokai society will also undergo a great metamorphosis. Though it's said not to happen for thousands of years, yokai foresight is incomparable to humans, so this may be troubling. Anyway, giving me a complete rundown of how it works is just going to be a waste of time. But I got something I want to ask you. I know you can find the position of the stars in the yokai constellations with that thing, but what's that? Master of the Night Sky. The Master of the Night Sky? Isn't that the moon? I guess that lets you measure the position of the moon, too. The moon is the heavenly body important to the yokai, too, so the Master of the Night Sky would have to be the moon. Nah, it's not the moon. Is there some other heavenly body worthy of being called Master? Those. The stars that stand out the most, the ones that fall down and disappear in a flash. In a flash? You mean shooting stars? Yeah, that's it. They're my favorite out of all the stars. They grant your wishes, too. Ah, I see. Shooting stars. Liking flashy things is very Marissa-like, but that is different. Those aren't celestial bodies. Shooting stars aren't stars, you know. It's a shooting star, right? Ain't it a star? Shooting stars are scales from Tenryu, the dragon who flies through the heavens, that sparkle when they fall off, so this tool can't find their position. Well, I guess it's because they move, huh? I didn't think I'd be able to measure that, but it's still a shame. Why is it a shame? If you knew what time they fell, you could have so many wishes granted as you wanted. If you got enough free time to study other stars, you should study shooting stars instead. It's not like they were studying them because they had free time, but it's true you can't tell when shooting stars will fall. However, I know a way to see them for sure. What was that? Really? If you know, tell me. A few times a year on certain days, a large number of shooting stars pour out from the sky. If you look then, during a single night, you can probably see 10, no, 100 shooting stars. So I told Marissa one of the days that she could see a meteor shower, and on that day Marissa showed up early. Brought along Reimu, and we had also a sort of meteor shower viewing party. I wonder how much time has passed. They counted the 15th shooting star. This is amazing! I really think we'll see 100 of them tonight. I'm starting to feel a bit tired. After saying Reimu shouldn't be, Marissa leaned further outside the window to take in the astronomical view. Ah, the 16th one! Can. Reimu whispered. What was that? Saying a wish 3 times while a shooting star is visible is almost impossible, right? So I tried shortening my wish as much as possible. You cut off too much. What kind of a wish was that anyway? A wish for about my incantation skill. What were you wishing for? I want to use stronger magic. Both of them were excited about seeing 100 shooting stars, but as the time between them continued to increase, they ended up losing count, becoming tired and falling asleep. And thus the curtain had closed on the first shooting star wishing party. Present day, 4 or 5 years later, I stared at the memorable armillary spear. From then on, the shooting star wishing party became a yearly tradition, and we've already had quite a few of them. When I think about it, I get the feeling that ever since the first shooting star wishing party, Marissa started to use star-related magic. Now when it comes to magic shooting stars, it's Marissa's #1 specialty. Plus, every year she comes asking for the dates of the meteor showers, and I hear she'll watch them by herself. I wonder if Marissa was enchanted by Tenryu, and I wonder if her wishes were granted. The polar opposite of the static movements of the stars, shining brightly and immediately disappearing. Every now and then they'll become meteorites that reach the Earth. and hold a power capable of dealing incredible damage. I wonder what people see in those kinds of shooting stars. Oh, the yokai armillary spear. That sure brings back memories. You still holding on to it? Yeah, I took it out for the first time in a while and was looking at it. But when did you come in? You were just daydreaming and didn't notice me. I was just reminiscing a bit about the past, but... Huh? Was it? I was reading the names of the yokai constellations written on the armillary spear. There are various yokai written down, but I found one that particularly caught my attention. It wasn't the name of a constellation, but it stood out the most. Never mind, it's nothing. It looked like it was. And it was. The legend about yokai going to the moon over 1,000 years ago isn't really a legend. I heard it from the mouth of one of the yokai herself. In other words, that yokai is still living in Gensokyo. Still in Gensokyo and still controlling things from behind the scenes. On this armillary sphere, that yokai's name was written. Furthermore, it was written as the creator's name. Let me see. Oh, I think I should be able to read this. Author Yakumo Yukari. Ugh, really? She made this? Marissa was clearly annoyed, and I agreed with her. The reason is that the place where those characters were written was in a place where a constellation name should be. Furthermore, it wasn't maker, but author. So that's it. This was made by that annoying yokai. Lame. At any rate, she's smart and has a wealth of knowledge. If you were honest about it, you probably would be learning from her. Do well to learn from her. Don't wanna. Anyway, just because she made this doesn't really mean she's smart. You don't have nearly enough humility nor the ability to conjecture. This doesn't mean that Yukari Yakumo is the yokai that made this armillary spear. Most likely she's the one who came up with the names of the constellations written on the armillary spear. In other words, I think she's one that made the constellations. Gensokyo, a place where these sorts of characters are still active. Until now, I've underestimated the power of yokai have to live very long lives. But thinking about how that relates to the spear, I feel a slight chill. Alright. Now for 8 situations. A Japanese customary expression is the time of ox of 12 branches, plants also sleeping. Kusaki mo nemuru ushimitsudoki. Ushimitsudoki is from 2 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. It's the hour of the cow. Well, I guess the hour of the ox. Everything and everyone seems to stop action to make us feel that something's moving. Staying up late at such a midnight is a criminal or a ghost. In the original text, it makes a mistake, as quite many people might also do. Crying children also shutting up. Naku komodamaru is a customary phrase of very scary, dreadful person. Armillary spear, also called a spherical astrolabe. Astrolabe, a celestial globe. The name of the constellations are all based on the names of yokai. Yuki Nyudo is a yokai from Okoyama Prefecture with one eye and a large foot. Kainba literally means flaming old woman. And Basho Nose, the spirit of the basho plant, which is the banana family. Again, all of these are yokai. Tenome means hand with eyes. A Sudebe Otoshi is a falling well bucket spirit, and a Tengu is a yokai often depicted with a red face and long nose. Ibuki Doji literally means Ibuki child. It's based on the song from Uyama and refers to an Oni child. Sika is based on the Ibuki Doji and wears a belt. Her holding chains of 3 weights of geometrical objects: yellow sphere, red tetrahedron, and blue hexahedron. These 3 symbols are related to Gibbon Sengai's picture circle, triangle, square, or 3 dimensions of somatic attunement. This picture is so esoteric that there are several interpretations on it, and one of them is that Ronesuke speaks of in the main text. There is a hypothesis that the original source of Tengu in the ancient Taoist idea of shooting star, they saw shooting stars were dogs running in the sky, as you find the spelling of the Tengu in kanji as celestial dog. Also known as Fudo Myoru, or Akala, an important figure in Japanese Buddhism and Shugendo. Or Mahvahiro Kanna, another important figure in Japanese Buddhism. Cool. So this chapter was a lot of nonsense, but there were 2 aspects in here that I think are very interesting. Number 1, the first time yokai landed on the moon, otherwise known as the First Lunar War. So we learned that yokai landed on the moon thousands of years ago, or about 1,000 years ago. And then it confirms at the end that this happened because he heard it from the horse's mouth. The horse being Yukari, of course. So there's that. The other aspect here, which I wouldn't say is easier to miss, but there's comments about Marissa and Marissa's favorites. Marissa's favorite types of stars are the shooting stars, and there's also mentions there that the first time they had this party, this shooting star viewing party, was about 4 or 5 years ago from the events of this one, which would place it timeline-wise before EOSD, because I'm pretty sure at this point in time with this chapter, Touhou 9 is the newest one. Touhou 9 is the newest one, I think. Either that or 10's around the corner. Either way, if you want to place it accurately to the time, like to the time of game releases, to the actual time within Gensokyo itself, saying about 5 years ago would place it a couple years before EOSD. And the way I like that he says that it seems that Marissa's magic took on the motif of stars after she had been after that viewing party originally those years ago, and then she liked them so much that she continued to do them on her own as well. And I like that because we do know that a big motif of Marissa's magic is stars. She likes stars, and it's all written here, a bit of an origin. But it's also it's interesting because it's also kind of a like, it's not the focus of the chapter at all. It's just kind of there, and it's kind of just like mentioned in a couple words. The chapter is mostly about Yukari naming constellations that she finds through the globe. That was kind of the majority of it. I mean, I think the main idea of this chapter is just about yokai longevity. Yeah, that's the term. It's more about that, but there is a really interesting aspect to Marissa's character in there, which is cool. And that's why you read Cola, because you're looking for the interesting stuff. Oh my goodness. You're looking for the interesting stuff in the well of nonsense. Oh my god. Hey. Here's Marissa pondering the orb. And the other one. I'm looking. I wish the colors were the same. There it is. Look how happy she is. Constellations that look like yokai. It's a very Marissa-centric chapter. Still a lot of nothing going on there. But Cola does randomly have very interesting pieces of lore to characters that we know and like, scattered throughout it. That's chapter 22. Chapter 23. Marissa with blue-green eyes. There you go. Looks tired. Kind of goo looking, actually. A little bit. Alright. The Shrine Maiden and the Magician cannot win against this illness. The latest book in the Touhou series, Perfect Memento in Strict Sense, Ichinsha, is now on sale. In this chapter, both Marissa and Reimu, it's weird how they keep putting Marissa first there, because I always read it as Reimu and Marissa, have turned ill at the same time. Just what could be affecting these two? The contagious god. Ready? Let's begin. Around the middle of winter, the sliding door to the storeroom rattles and opens with some difficulty. As very few things back there generate heat, snow often piles up in that area of the roof. The weight of the snow pushes down on the roof and thus the door. This may be one factor. Why I say one is because there is yet another important reason. That being the spirit of the god of grains. Vroom. That's the combine harvester. It's also a god. Having worked outside until the autumn harvest, rest in my storage room in preparation for planting in the coming spring. What was once a humble storage area becomes sacred ground, and one can feel the weight of its divinity holding back the door. It's just as Lord Daikoku resides in the kitchen, not being confined to a single place, but anywhere food is prepared. This means that gods aren't just found in objects, but in all sorts of places. However, they do not put any emotion or thought into this notion. They will always be somewhere or someplace for them to live. That is the main difference between gods and yokai, fairies and ghosts. Oh, what's the matter? For someone who always makes a racket misbehaving in my store, you're awfully quiet. Marissa, clothed in black from head to toe, staggered into the store, making her look even smaller and blacker. Cough. What do you mean? I'm always quiet. Phew, finally made it. Did you catch a cold? You don't look so well. Would you like something warm to drink? There was just hot water boiling in the kettle on the stove, but I poured her a cup. Ah, thanks, said Marissa as she sat on a chair. If you have a cold, maybe you should have stayed home instead. Maybe if this were a normal cold, sleeping would help. Cough, cough. So this is an abnormal cold. I do not catch colds very often. It's that my body is resistant to illness, but there is a reason. There are very few diseases that can afflict both yokai and humans. Only humans can suffer from human illnesses, and only yokai can suffer from yokai illnesses. As an aside, most human illnesses are sicknesses of the body, while most yokai illnesses are those of the mind. In the case of half human, half yokai like myself, they are resistant to both varieties. That's why I could allow Marissa into the store without worrying about contracting her illness. I don't even know if this is a cold or what. My whole body just feels heavy. I see. Unfortunately, while I'm not especially strong, I don't get sick easily. Even if you tell me what your symptoms are, I won't really know what your problem is. Yeah, I know. It's not like I came here to check up or anything. Man, just got something I wanted to show you. Knock, knock. Are you here, Mr. Renosuke? Cough. Oh, do you have a cold too? I don't know if it's a cold, but it feels like my body doesn't want to move. Upon saying that, she immediately headed straight for the interior of the shop, where there was already another patient asleep. Marissa's already sleeping in the back. Yes, I imagined she would be feeling ill. You're my second patient today. I don't mind because I don't catch colds easily. Maybe I should become a doctor too. You won't make a profit out of it even if you do. I couldn't tell if she meant that there wouldn't be enough people who trusted me enough for that, or that the residents of Gensokyo rarely needed doctors, but I heard that about 2 years ago, a rather skilled physician appeared and her practice is thriving. So I doubt Reimu meant the latter. This skilled physician suddenly appeared in the bamboo forest and is said to treat both humans and yokai alike. If Reimu and Marissa symptoms get out of hand, maybe it would be best to call her. But at any rate, why did Reimu come here in such poor condition? I never told them I stock medicine here, because I rarely do. Cough, cough. I came to look for something. I want an antique, so I thought Koido would be the best place to find one. You're just looking for an antique. Maybe you should have come when you were feeling better. That's not going to happen. If I don't find what I'm looking for, this is only going to get worse. So you seem to know the reason behind this strange cold. Reimu told me how the majority of the people living in the human village had already come down with the same cold symptoms. While they call it a cold, the coughing isn't as bad, but the body feels lifeless and even walking is a chore. And this cold is highly contagious. I'm looking for something like a small pot or similar antique. The older the better. A pot. Are you giving up on being a shrine maiden and starting a new religion? But the most important thing is that it must be something without a name. I had only a vague grasp on whatever Reimu was planning. For her to come all the way to my store while ill and then ask for a nameless item. But that reminds me, Marissa said she wanted me to show me something, but since she's sleeping, I suppose it can wait. So an antique and one without a name. It's going to be rather poor quality. Let's see. I thought something at the shrine might work too, but I can't tell what has or hasn't been named yet. She added, because the only one who can really do that is you, right? That made me feel better, and with a slight air of pride, I came back with Reimu's request. How about something like this? It's a plate that goes back 300 years from the current age. It was meant to be used, but the quality was so poor that it doesn't seem like it was used at all. Because of that, it wasn't named anything in particular. You have anything a little older, like, say, around 1200 years ago? Reimu said that, having merely glanced at the plate. I had the feeling that age was the more important factor in her request. 1200 years. I don't usually have something like that on hand. Cordendo's supposed to have everything, isn't it? I want something nameless that's as old as possible. She started to lie down as she complained. I would consider my shop to stock curios and antiques, but I don't think I ever mentioned having everything. But with my air of pride, unable to accept turning down a request, I went to go put away the dish with the other stock, did not want to sell, and began looking for something 1200 years old. When I opened the cold, heavy door to the storage room, I began to think of why Reimu needed such a thing. Reimu, I couldn't find anything exactly to your demands, but would something like this be acceptable? As I said that, I showed her a flat triangular lump about as large as my hand. This is a fragment of a jar older than 1,000 years old. It has no name. Naturally, a mere fragment has no value as an antique. But as far as objects older than 1,000 years, this is our only option. However, this is no ordinary fragment. This was originally part of a pot with an interesting purpose, for sealing something within it. I'm sorry I couldn't find anything any older, but it's all I could find. This should do just fine. I knew you had something, Mr. Inosuke. She asked to borrow it for a moment, held it in one hand and a sacred tree branch in the other, and began to murmur. It looked as if she was performing a ritual. I was not expecting this to be her purpose in the least. May the voice of the god Tomo no Yoshio be heard. It appeared she was actually doing something a shrine maiden would do for once. Perhaps it has something to do with the unusual colds. She finished her simple ritual by placing the seal on the fragment, and sighed. Phew, now I feel much more relieved. If I take this around the village, that should cure everyone's illness. Oh, well, isn't that nice? But I still have absolutely no idea what's been going on. Can you give me some details? I wondered if Reimu was already feeling better, as after she finished her mysterious rite and seemed more her normal self, she began explaining the situation. First of all, this is a contagious disease, she began. Similar to the vicious cold, it easily passed between people, and simply being close to someone infected with it will lead to catching it. Endemics of these unexplained illnesses seem to happen once every several years. It is impossible to limit the spread of a contagious disease by oneself. To completely suppress it, it is necessary to seal the curse god that caused it into something. According to Reimu, the cause of this disease's prevalence is the curse god associated with it running rampant. By finding out which god is doing it, sealing it, and then showing it to those who have been afflicted with the disease, this will give them the belief that they have been cured. Gods that need to gather faith choosing to do so in this temporary manner are called contagious gods. In this case, to suppress the illness, we need to fool the god of this illness that it has collected faith, and in that way it will become a real curse god. Fool, you say. Fooling a god that has control over disease sounds disastrous. This time I bestowed the role of curse god onto the god Tomo no Yoshio. He is a curse god that occasionally deals with plagues. That sounds pretty bad. But wasn't Tomo no Yoshio an actual person? If I remember, about 1200 years ago. It'll be fine. While there was fear of plagues at first, and the grudge he bears does not seem to have lessened by much, Tomo no Yoshio seemed grateful to do any kind of dirty deed. And this time he was quick to say, if you want me to cure this disease, make me into a curse god or anything else. I guess he's been bored lately, so I let him handle it. I wonder if gods and shrine maidens always have such friendly conversations, but it's a world that only shrine maidens know, being mouthpieces for the gods. I wanted something without a name because objects with names already have another god residing in them. Nameless items that are extremely old are the ideal vessels. I see now. So you should be able to cure everyone's illness with that. You said they were gathering belief temporarily. So how does curing the illness turn them into a god? Divine spirits of illnesses of the past that no one fears any longer lack the power to do anything. You haven't heard of anyone worshipping Lord Tomo no Yoshio as a normal god, right? He didn't even have a shrine built for him. Now that he's sealed in this fragment, I'll ultimately throw him away at Muenzuka. The way you're saying that, like gods are disposable, is rather cruel. That's the fate of these contagious gods. Just forgetting about them is the best thing for us humans. But still, Lord Tomono Yoshio was supposed to have been already sealed, so why did he seem bored? Hey, I'm feeling pretty good now. Sitting up in bed, Marissa wedged herself in our conversation. I might have looked like I was sleeping, but I heard it. What Raymond was talking about is to cure the disease from one's will. I didn't say that. Cure the disease from a god, I said. Saying, well, that's what it sounded like to me. She reached into her hat and took out a small old plate. I thought I'd come by and give you a look at this today, Corden, but the thing is, ever since I picked it up, I've been feeling pretty bad. That's another old plate. It seems to have quite a history. I took it because I thought it'd be worth something, but all of a sudden I felt horrible for some reason. I wanted to consult you about it, a double meaning. It doesn't look like it was given a name. Unfortunately, I doubt it's worth a great deal, but what I can say for sure is that it's rare to see something so old. Raymond inspected the plate and a curious expression appeared on her face. Where exactly did you find this plate? Funny thing, when I first found it had these dirty seals all over it, so I thought I'd clean it up. That's when I started feeling sick. I heard the sound of snow falling off the roof. How long had passed since Raymond began lecturing Marissa? I get the feeling she had already repeated herself 3 times by now. You know, if you see something that's been sealed, don't take them off. You found that plate at Wenzica, didn't you? You had no idea what was sealed inside anyway. How's your average human supposed to know a contagious god was sealed inside? Why'd you throw something like that out anyway? It's important to put it somewhere away from the village until the contagious god has lost all its faith. The reason why everyone is sick is because of you going to Wenzica and deliberately removing the seal. You realize that, right? Now I know why Lord Tomono Yoshio seemed so bored. It was because of you breaking the seal. Keep your voice down, will you? I'm still trying to get over a cold. Thanks to your foolish actions, now I'm going to have to go around to every house in the village one by one. The image of Reimu visiting each house trying to gather faith for the cursed god to cure the epidemic was rather amusing. But I was still skeptical of whether that would truly work. If sealing a cursed god is how illnesses are cured, I have the feeling that doesn't explain the reason why I don't fall ill easily, nor why yokai and humans are susceptible to different sicknesses. The physician that appeared in the bamboo forest doesn't need to commune with the gods to heal disease, but rather uses more advanced procedures, using utensils no one has seen before, taking pictures of the inside of the body, removing the affected area with no pain, even exchanging useless parts of the body for working replacements. However, I still hold some doubt as I have not seen these for myself, but if they are true, then the bamboo forest physician is likely an intellectual that started their practice here after lamenting over the condition of medical care in Gensokyo. She may even be from the outside world. I didn't know that Adam was doing full fucking surgeries, like removing body parts. I knew she was a doctor, but damn. I guess she can just do it all. Alright. So, Marissa. This is Marissa's fault. Classic. So here's Marissa. She's got the Dr. Mario germs. Alright. Okay. We're going to throw pills down her throat and she'll be okay. And here is Reimu. I wanted to say she looks very happy, but she actually looks a little delirious. Very goo-pilled. Alright. Chapter 23 done. So, we didn't really learn anything inherently interesting. I mean, I guess, with the cursed gods. Nothing here really sticks. It's mostly this chapter reads like a Saturday morning cartoon for sure. An educational Saturday morning cartoon. Fucking Marissa. I found a cool plate that's full of seals that do not rip off. So I ripped them off. And then I started feeling ill. Marissa. Alright. Chapter 24. Here's the cover. Very pretty. Very pretty cover. Whose house is that? The gang's all here. The moon is right. Alright. The scattered moon drops, falling, dancing cherry blossoms are coloring and garnishing. When you think of spring, you think of cherry blossoms, and then flower viewing parties. Spring in Gensokyo is a busy time. But unfortunately, today's event has been put on hold due to rain. In order to relieve the boredom a bit, Renosuke talks about a relationship between the calendar and the moon. Also, be sure to check out the comic Touhou Sengetsu Eastern and Little Nature Deity Kadokawa Shoten, now on sale. That was 2005, by the way. Isn't it weird? I think it's really weird to think about, but Sengetsu started in 2005. Three Fairies debuted in 2005. But most people, when they think of the Three Fairies, they think of the first, they think of Visionary. Not Visionary, sorry, the other one. Strange and Bright Nature Deity, which is the second book, when Makoto Hirasawa took over. And then Fairy Wars, which was, you know, between UFO and 13. So it feels like the Three Fairies weren't really characters until, you know, the Mountain of Faith era. Like they feel like characters that are more in the later end of the second series, like Mountain of Faith, SA, UFO, and kind of 10 Desires. But no, they started in 2005. They did. It's interesting to think about, really. The Charming Moon. Let's begin. The rapidly falling cherry blossom petals covered the land white, replacing the snow that had just melted. Though I had not checked the calendar in a while, I could surmise a guess just by looking outside that either April was about to end or May had already started. I thought the cherry blossoms bloomed a little late this year, but a few days' difference is no cause for alarm. It just seemed to me that there were fewer warmer days this winter. Cherry blossom buds only appear on warmer days, for on colder days the temperature makes them close up tight. If there are fewer warmer days, that will delay when the blossoms bloom. Incidentally, in the few records left behind after Gensokyo's formation, it is written that in Gensokyo over 100 years ago, the beginning of March would be determined by the blooming of the cherry blossoms. As it presently indicates a more suitable time frame around the end of April or the beginning of May, when you consider that March comes much earlier. So when compared to the winter temperatures from back then, and the cherry blossoms blooming almost 2 months later, they were likely much warmer than it is now. But of course, that's not the case at all. Winter always has been and always will be cold. There is another reason for the cherry blossom signaling the beginning of March. Now, if it were me, I'd shoot down every last petal. What? If it were me, I'd dodge them all. But they fall so slow. That's nothing special. What are you talking about? Slower bullets are harder to avoid than fast ones. I mean, for some reason, Rainbow and Marissa were having a bitter, pointless argument, but I couldn't hold it against them. They were planning on having a flower viewing party today, but it was cancelled. And to make matters worse, the blossoms have been almost completely fallen off, and already bits of green could be seen on the trees. Today might have been their last chance. With their wishes of this send-off party to their precious petals dashed by the heartless rain, they now wait bored inside the shop. They were so excited for their party, but now they were likely worried if the rain would strip the remaining petals from the trees. And besides, the petals are already so limp. You can't be proud of such limp things as petals. Then I'll get the very first prize, even if it's given for the person who's proud of shooting petals. Alright, you two. I think that's enough of this petty argument. After the cherry blossoms fall, if you know what means summer is right around the corner, it's simply that this year it won't be spring when it takes them, but the spring rain. You shouldn't be spending endless hours bickering because of your current situation. Why don't you try thinking a little more? Thinking ahead a little more. Petty? How rude. What we're doing is discussing new ways of interacting with cherry blossoms. Isn't that thinking ahead? We're so far ahead, we're practically in the future. Although they said far ahead, their future is a lot more recent. Like about what they should do today. We're so forward thinking we never reflect on the past. But a little while earlier, Yukari said something like, "It's a good thing the cherry blossoms against Sokyo bloomed late this year." What does that mean? Winter in the outside world suddenly became much shorter, so the cherry blossoms bloomed in the middle of March, she said. Ringu told me in an unusually lazy tone of voice, which I took for her mimicking Yukari, although it was a poor imitation. If you take too many liberties in your exaggeration, no one will know who it's supposed to be. I see. So she mentioned something about the shorter winter in the outside world. Since she's got both the outside world's blossoms and Gensokyo's evening blossoms, she said, I get to enjoy seeing the cherry blossoms twice this year. I don't know why she only saw Gensokyo's cherry blossoms in the evening, but even if the timing is different in the blooming of the trees in the outside world and Gensokyo, it should be no inconvenience to the yokai here. Ah, so that means the cherry blossoms in the outside world were at full bloom in March. It seems they had an exceptionally warm winter, but no matter. Since you two seem bored, let me tell you about something strange. I took a glance at the window as I said this. The rain had lessened into a light drizzle, but the outside of the window was clearly wet. I wondered if the rain would wash away the petals stuck to the window until this end of my story. What's this something strange? Just a small detail. While the cherry blossoms blooming in March and the outside world is indeed early, a long time ago the cherry trees blossomed in March as well, both in the outside world and Gensokyo. Blossomed in March. Isn't that more than a month early? Who would want to have a party when it's so cold outside? No, I didn't mean that it actually was March, simply that they blossomed in March. Was that a Zen riddle? It's the old calendar. There are almost no traces of it nowadays, but over 100 years ago they used the lunisolar calendar. March is the old calendar, would be around the end of April in the modern one. I was just saying that if you use the old calendar, the cherry blossoms would bloom in March. The old calendar. Ah, that. Hey, I sometimes wonder about this myself, but what is the old calendar, and why'd they change it for the new one? I prepared some salted tea and floating cherry blossom petals for them. I poured the hot water slowly, and even the floating blooms in the cup were also imbibed. While we can't enjoy relaxing under the trees today, there are still ways to enjoy the view of the blossoms. I never thought you would prepare such beautiful tea for us, Mr. Vanosuke. So what's this old calendar business about, and why was it necessary to change to the new one? The old calendar, or to be specific, the lunisolar calendar, is based on the waxing and waning of the moon. One cycle, the time between new moons, takes 29 to 30 days, is counted as a month. And then 12 of those months make a year. Ah, so maybe that's why the word month comes from the word moon. Precisely. When the change was made to the new calendar, that word remained unchanged. However, the amount of time is different. As a month now is around 30 or 31 days, it's about 1 day more than the old month. So that means a year in the old calendar is roughly 10 days shorter than a year in the new calendar. Missing 10 days out of a year? That doesn't sound too bad to me. No, it is bad. Being short by even 10 days is very troublesome. After 10 years, it will start snowing in spring. After another 10 years, winter and summer will have completely changed places. So it'll be a warm winter, huh? Wouldn't it be more hot than warm? And just like that, the seasons and the month would continually shift. So they added a 13th month every 3 years. So that's why I see that word come up every now and then in the old books. Marissa seemed to be waiting for the perfect time to drink her tea. I'm not sure what her idea of perfect timing is, though. As for Reimu, she has already started on hers. Unfortunately, this is not the case. In years, when they had the 13th month, it was never called the 13th month. The reason is because when the seasons would become too out of place, that would simply add the extra month to the end of the current month. Like when March would start to feel too much like February, both the real March and the extra month would both be called March. How does that make any sense? What a ridiculous system. Of course, they had some manner to clearly calculate when to add this extra month, but after a while they were able to rely on their senses. Sense is the underlying aspect in all calculations. But doesn't having two of the same month make things complicated? Given it some kind of name, make it more sense. The second extra month was properly distinguished by the name intercalary month. For example, the second March would be called intercalary March. The reason why they changed it to the new calendar was that even with the intercalary months, the seasons would rarely match up and it would become too inconvenient. So the old lunisolar calendar was abandoned and the new solar calendar became more widespread in its place. Wow, the old calendar was so complicated. I wonder if it wasn't humans who came up with it, but yokai. Why didn't they use the calendar we have now from the very start? Well, the lunar solar calendar is better suited for yokai. You'd immediately know on what dates the new moon and full moons occur. But as human technology advanced, the sun became the more dominant element over the moon. But aren't there quite a few yokai here in Gensokyo? Do we really need to use the new calendar here? The reason why we use the new one here too is because it is the one they use in the outside world. That's it. We're already isolated enough, but using a different calendar would make matters worse. It's not as if the lunar solar calendar was created in Gensokyo. I guess you're right. Now that I think about it, it would be strange if the yokai suddenly decided to stop going by the moon and started using the sun instead. Indeed. They never wanted to have the change forced upon them, and I've heard that there are still some here who have not yet adapted. In fact, there is a unique lunar solar calendar here made by the yokai of Gensokyo. The two of them, their mood improved, having forgotten their quarrel, listened intently to my story. The lunar solar calendar of yokai, the yokai lunar solar calendar. It doesn't just go by the waxing and waning of the moon, but defines 1 month from the cycle of the color of moonlight and of changes of its perimeter. It is said that it is much easier to tell when natural phenomena will occur than using the calendars the humans devised. Not only seasons, but disasters like earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, and when the bamboo flowers will bloom. Many kinds of cycles are included in this calendar. Just by knowing the date, you can also know how much longer it will be until the bamboo flowers bloom. That's pretty cool. If their calendar's got all that stuff, maybe we humans should use it too. Sounds a lot more useful, that's for sure. However, there's a big problem with humans using the calendar. The length of the day is not as long as our days. In fact, the concept of day doesn't even exist. Their smallest unit of measurement is a month. If they were to compare to the current day, the new moon would be like midnight and the full moon would be like noon. And it's considerably long, taking 60 of our years for one of their calendar cycles. This might be fine for beings with such long lifespans as yokai, but for much more shorter-lived humans, that seems extremely inconvenient to me. So since they hate the sun, they went with the moon. Guess they really do depend on it that much, but I guess I ain't ever heard of a yokai using that calendar. Although they made it, very few actually used it. I heard that the yokai living on the mountain use it, though. By the way, there's a month of the same purpose as the intercalary month in the yokai lunisolar calendar as well. However, they don't call it the intercalary month, but the more obvious 13th month, and in years of this month, the power of yokai becomes exceptionally stronger. Because of these years, when yokai become stronger, it seems that the number 13 is considered unlucky by humans in certain areas. Never heard that before. I know about 13-year cicada, though. Yes, because I told you about that, but you're right, I myself haven't heard much about 13 being an unlucky number around here. That was all the information I had regarding the yokai lunisolar calendar. Even if they asked me for more, it would be mere speculation, so I stood up to pour tea, thinking that serving them more cherry blossom tea would remind them of the cherry blossoms outside and put them in a disagreeable mood yet again. I poured the usual green tea. Since I had shared the extent of my knowledge on the matter, the conversation came to a standstill, but then Rainbow's voice broke the silence with a rather simple question. By the way, Mr. Renosuke, what does intercalary mean exactly? I don't think that word comes up normally in most conversations. It's important not to take things for granted, but question even the smallest details. Humans' growth is directly related to how much knowledge one has accumulated. The better you know the past, the better you know the present, and the better you know the future. Intercalary, huh? Let me think. The meaning of the character from the continent is not the genuine article, since the second march after the first one wasn't the real march. That's why it was called intercalary march. Since it's a character from the continent, they don't use that character in the yokai lunisolar calendar. That's why it isn't used outside of the context of the lunar solar calendar. But how did it become associated with it in the first place? Originally, this country had no word that expressed the meaning of the word intercalary. Oh, I see. However, that character isn't pronounced uru in the continent. The reason why it's pronounced uru here is because of a rather slipshod reason. When it came over from the continent, there were no words in Japanese language that could properly express it, so no one knew how to read it. Then someone noticed it looked like the character in urou, meaning a number of things ranging from moist or charming, so they called it urou as well. So urou march would sound like charming march. They put no other thought into it, and then since they felt that urou was too difficult to say, they shortened it to just uru. So as far as why it is pronounced like that, there was never any meaning in it from the start. And since this word rarely came up in conversations, that's the whole origin story. So it looked like the character for uroru, and then they shortened it to uru because it was too hard to say? That really is lazy. Are you okay with that, Mr. Renosuke? I thought you were a lot more picky about names. Words are things that stand on their own, and I have no business meddling in their origins. And besides, I rather like the sound of it. Doesn't saying charming year or charming month sound a great deal more pleasant than not the actual month? Well, because it's the charming month, it seems unnecessary for it to be raining while the cherry blossoms are blooming as well. But look, the rain stopped. The light from the sun, which had come out at some point, could be seen outside the window, seeping in through the gaps in the clouds. Having given up their flower viewing party for lost, the two were now in high spirits. I was unsure how many flowers remained to be viewed, but I had the feeling they would take any opportunity to have a party merely for the sake of it. Won't you join us tonight too, Mr. Minosuke? This might be the last time we have a flower viewing party this year, and the cherry blossoms are so pretty when they're shining with water. I say this every time, but I don't like outdoor parties. Come on, what are you talking about? I listen to your boring stories, so the least you can do is make it up to us. Despite their irrational request, I just happened to be in the mood to see the cherry blossoms that evening. I said it would be worth seeing the flowers that had not been washed away by the rain once, imagining a beautiful world full of flowers moist with rain, gracefully falling under the light of the charming moon made me want to drink sake. Zen Riddle. Questions and responses on Zen is a way of training in some sects of Zen. Master given a metaphysical question, and disciple answers it. Style and content of the questions are too vague, so the word is often used by ordinary people to mean nonsense, cryptic, or pedantic. Remember the incident of Phantasmagoria Flower View results from the 60-year cycle of flowers blooming and withering in large scale. The word for ugu. The word for ogu. Oh, it's Alice song. Hold on. Here's Rainbow staring at a teacup. Wow. Riveting. Here's Marissa drinking from a teacup. Wait. She's not holding it in her hands. Bro. She got some strong jaw. She is biting the bottom of that cup and keeping it up in her mouth. But she's also saying words. How's she doing that? How's she doing that? Oh, cha. For the same reason for the name Charming Domination, the PCB stage theme. Is it the same kanji? Or is that title even in kanji? Isn't that English? That's a good question, actually. Cause it is related to the cherry blossoms. It is also the deal with late spring. You might be right. I never thought of that. That could be cool. So the idea, I like this chapter a bit because I like the idea there that there was a calendar. Like our calendar we run on is based on a rotation of the sun. Takes one full set of our calendar for rotation around the sun. But then this was one that counted the lunar cycles. And it's neat how it was a day off in a bunch of places. So it eventually kind of off-synced. And the correction there was to make it so every 3 years there was just a 13th month. Because that would just fix everything. Because it would add the 30 days that got missed over the course of 3 years. That's kind of neat. Oh shit, we're in the dark hour, the 13th month. Neat. Not much else to say about that chapter, I suppose. Neat though. So that was February. Yeah, we do a leap year. We do a leap year day. I guess it just accounts for something. Alright. We're almost done, chat. We're almost done. We're on chapter 25. I believe we have 3 more chapters left. So here's chapter 25, where we can see there's I think that's the Ushioni in the back there. I forget what the wheel guy is called, but I remember that one. Isn't that also an Ushioni down there in the corner? And then we have Tengu. So Curiosities here is where the Tengu outfit originated from. This outfit's pretty well known for Aya, I'd say, but it's something that Genji Asai made. I don't know what his reference for it was, to be honest with you, but It's a pretty well-known outfit for Aya, and yeah, it stems from here. This isn't the first page. This isn't the first page where Tengu appear. This is the first colored image where the Tengu appear. But there was a chapter earlier with the cameras where there was a panel of them having a drinking party with the Tengu. But this is the first real clear image that we have of them in the outfit. It's a cool outfit though, isn't it? Okay. My brain read that as the Hakurei Shrine is full of yogurt. I don't know why. Alright. Pity, Reimu. The Hakurei Shrine is full of yokai. In this chapter, yokai are beginning to gather at the Hakurei Shrine more often, and a more worried Reimu comes to talk to Inosuke about it. Amazed at the weak faith that Reimu and Marisa have in the gods, Inosuke explains a surprising connection between the gods and faith. Blessings of the Shrine. Mountains will have mountain gods, and rivers will have river gods. Gods reside in everything on the earth. This book that you have in your hand, or a semiconductor that you may have picked up, is no exception. But certain special gods have shrines dedicated to their worship. What's the difference between these gods and the other gods? There's nothing in particular, it's just a matter of a god being sufficiently popular or not. Gods that provide blessing to humans are popular. Hold on. Sorry. There are also gods that will spread curses when not worshipped, but by worshipping them one can escape misfortune. So they have popularity in a different sense. Shrines exist for such gods. A shrine's existence is thus decided by popularity, which is entirely up to humans. But for gods, it doesn't matter to them in the least. The reason for this is that a god's power is determined by the amount of faith humans have in them. For example, O Inari-san and Tenjin-sama, who are very popular amongst people, have succeeded in gaining far greater power than they used to have when they were referred to as Uka no Mitami no Kami or Suguwara no Mishizane, due to the great number of shrines built in their honor. Conversely, as for what happens when people lose faith in gods, they will lose their powers, and once there is nobody who remembers them, they disappear from existence. A god must work hard in gathering faith, since their very existence is at stake. Why does our shrine have so many yokai? You probably need more visitors, otherwise the gods won't have enough power to ward them off. But if there are yokai in the first place, no one will come. There's nothing that can be done about that. True. It appears to be a vicious cycle. I think the shrine maiden Reimu, who doesn't do her job and comes to relax here all the time, is one of the problems. In the past, the shrine didn't have so few visitors and yokai never approached it. I must say that the main cause is the current shrine maiden, Reimu. I suppose it's beginning to bother her, as she said she's here to discuss ways to recollect faith. Well, even if we lose too much faith, it won't change my job of exterminating yokai, so it might not be a bad thing after all. You're mistaken, Reimu. A shrine losing faith can be fatal. I guess you're right. Since I wouldn't get any offerings. No, it's not as simple as that. Saying that a god loses faith is like saying a god loses power. So if your shrine gets taken over by an evil spirit, it'll be harder to drive out. Well, if you say so. But what should I do? You can expel the yokai from the shrine as a last resort. Why would you start with the last resort? Now, whatever. What other options are there? One option is to rely on a new god. Give up on your current god and get a popular god to come to your shrine, along with its faith. When few are aware of your god's name, much less its blessings, it's no wonder you're losing faith like this. Enshrine another god? Am I allowed to do that? There shouldn't be a problem. A Japanese god is known as a bunde, meaning divisible spirit. Even if you split one into an endless number of parts, its power won't be affected. You can use that to bring another god's power directly to your shrine. The process of gaining a bunde is called a kanjo, and it's something that goes on frequently in the outside world. A new god. That should be a nice change of pace, and it might be fun. Maybe if I get a good god of sake to come, it'll be easy to get faith since its blessings are so obvious. If that's what you want, it might be good to get gods like Sengen-sama, otherwise called Konohana Sakuya Hime no Mikoto. She is usually a goddess of mountains, but she is one of sake as well. She's said to be a very beautiful goddess, and it's very popular. To make it easier to notice, you might want to change the name of your shrine to Hakude Sengen Shrine. I'm not really interested in changing the name. Even if the god you worship changes, it'll have no meaning if people don't notice it. So normally names change with such events. Ring-a-ling! Hey, it's rainy season, but it's not raining today. Since it's so sunny, maybe we should start praying for rain. I have no idea what you're talking about, Marissa, as usual. What are you talking about when it's not raining? We were having a very important discussion about the shrine. About the shrine? Did anything happen to that yokai shrine of yours, Reimu? The shrine being called that yokai shrine itself is the problem. Well, there are too few visitors, and the only one offerings I get are the leaves that the Tanuki put into the box. Oh, is that it? Don't worry about it. Most of those leaves are from me anyway. That's not what she's worried about. Reimu's problem isn't foolish pranks, but the fact that her shrine is losing faith because there are no visitors. You don't need the help of gods to kill a yokai. So wait, what good is the shrine then? Although I find repeating myself to be tiring, I once again explain the connection between the lack of faith and gods as well as shrines. I gotcha. Yeah, that'd definitely be a pain if your shrine got taken over by some yokai. But there's a real easy way to get more people to come if you want to know. What's that? Have a huge festival. And call it like the Hakude Shrine Reitaise. If you do something like that, I'm sure you'd get everyone who loves festivals, right? And if you still need more people, just have them every week. What the shrine is missing is something that'll put more people to it. If you keep having dinky little parties all the time, no one's going to bother coming all this way. What Marissa says is true. Humans won't worship gods that won't benefit them. If the lives of people become wealthier, then a shrine will not be needed. In that case, events like that might be needed to draw interest. Even if I do arrange a festival, I just know the only ones that will show up will be yokai. If there are yokai around, humans won't come. That's true, yeah. Yokai love pretty much anything when they can cause a racket. And why are we talking about having a kanjo? Huh? Kanjo? What's that? We explained to Marissa that a kanjo is the process of changing the god of worship at a shrine. If you do that, what happens to the god you have now? At first I was going to worship them at the same time. What do you mean by at first? I mean it'll vanish naturally if it's forgotten. What, it'll vanish? The summer scenery as seen from the window began to darken. There was still plenty of time until the evening, so I guess rain is underway. A unique ability of the rainy season, it seems. The god in your shrine will vanish. But Reimu, are you okay with that? If the shrine itself will vanish if I do nothing, then I guess I have no other choice. By the way, who is the god of the Hakude Shrine? An evil spirit? Or maybe not. There really aren't many records left to say, although we did get taken over by an evil spirit in the past. Yes. If even the god's own shrine maiden can't remember its name, it's not surprising that it's losing faith. But I guess there's no helping it. In Gensokyo, gods exist everywhere in nature. A place like a shrine isn't necessary, since one can ask for a god's favor anywhere. In Gensokyo, it is said, the only shrine is the Hakude Shrine. Thus, it is a unique place, and many simply refer to it as the shrine, since there are no other shrines with which to compare it. It can easily be forgotten that a god is being enshrined there. As expected, the people of Gensokyo no longer see the value of shrines. Well, the future of the shrine is something for you to decide. But there's one thing I can say. The Hakude Shrine plays an important role in supporting the border. Regardless of who the god is, that won't change. Well, the worst part is not knowing the blessings of the shrine. Is there even a blessing at all? I didn't feel any different after all those offerings. That's because you won't be blessed by offering leaves. I guess we should worship a god with a blessing. In that case, it might be Konohana Sakuya Hime no Mikoto then. Even if there are blessings of sake, I think the only people that'll be happy about it will be the people making the sake. And only a handful of those people. By the way, why do you get blessings from the gods you worship? Doesn't that make gods no different from the yokai that loiter at the shrine? The store had become dark. It seemed to be raining outside. Marissa was uneasy, worried about the weather, but Reimu was thinking of nothing else but her question. You're a shrine maiden, but you lack far too much knowledge. You don't even train because you dislike it. If you won't stop drinking sake all the time and don't train more often, you won't be able to save your shrine. Well, I'm studying now, aren't I? I suppose, but I'll tell you why you get blessings when you worship divine spirits. Sure, go on. They say everything has a divine spirit within it. But strictly speaking, things without names are divine spirits themselves. These objects are the names based on the ones of the power of the spirit. Now that you mention it, I think I've heard that before. Maybe I have told you before. I think it was about the petrified bone. Anyway, the divine spirit is different from a yokai in that it has two personalities. Since yokai are simple and only have one personality, that makes them twice as different. The two personalities are the Nigi and the Ara. The Nigi is the side that's kind to humans and is the one called the blessing. What? Its personality is the blessing? I told you that divine spirits are the origin of all, right? The divine spirit is the personality of an object. Thus, the emotions of an object are directly related to the power and become visible in matter. If a god of sake gained power, the sake would naturally become better. Also, the Nigi is further divided into two parts called the Saki and the Kushi. The Saki provides fulfillment to the soul, and the Kushi provides knowledge. If I were to use the gods of sake as an example, the Saki improves the fragrance and taste to the sake, while the Kushi will provide the skills to make sake. Nigi, Saki, Kushi. They're all good, aren't they? Maybe I should seriously have a kanjo for Konohana no Sakuya Hime. Well, gods other than Konohana no Sakuya Hime have personalities that are blessings too. But you mustn't forget their other personality, the Ara. Oh dear. The Ara is the wrath of the divine spirits and is the part that manifests itself as disaster and misfortune. Using the gods of sake as an example, the sake will not only taste bad, but can turn into poison. Worse yet, you may never be able to make sake in the same place ever again. I don't like the sound of that. A lesson not to anger the gods, I guess, but gods do always have those two personalities. Do gods always have those two personalities? There may be some differences, but they will always be there. Isn't there a god with only the gentle side? Divine spirits, that is to say all things against Sokyo, have both a good side and a bad side, but the Ara personality isn't always bad. But it turns sake bad, right? Well, the Ara is the true power of the divine spirits. By worshipping the Ara, the worshippers will be given protection. For example, it can ward off enemies that try to interrupt the sake manufacturing process. To put it simply, blessings are what comes from calming the Ara and thanking the Nigi to increase a god's power. People say that a dependable deity is one that goes around granting everyone's personal requests, but I guess that's not it at all. What you're saying is that the truth is that a god's increase in power is connected to its blessings. If you make the gods happy, people will receive blessings. It's different from making people happy by defeating yokai. Well, then the shrine doesn't have to worry about that then. The window showed that it was completely dark and raining outside, as it should be in the season. Raymond and Marissa decided to stay for dinner. Although it was not my intention, since we talked about sake so much, we decided to drink many different types of sake today. Maybe the sake is a blessing from Lady Sengen too. Then this sake must be one too. Two of you have had too much to drink. To Lady Sengen, cheers! The purpose of a god isn't necessarily to hear the request by the human who built it. All the gods need to do is listen and gather faith. A very convenient situation. That's why people can give their puny offerings and ask of anything they like to them. These divine spirits are just another kind of yokai that enjoy the relaxing life in Gensokyo. Don't read as Asama but as Sengen, only in the words related to Shintoism and Mount Fuji. In another case, very many native Japanese people make mistakes to read the shrine of the goddess Asama Taisha, not as Sengen Taisha. Rodosuke seems to overlook Moriya's shrine, but the date of release shows his statement has no problem. This chapter was published on August 2007 edition of Dengeki Moeo in June 26. Mountain of Faith was released on August 17th, same year. Then the Moriya elements hadn't reached Gensokyo in the day of this chapter. If you can't remember, read chapter 15, A Nameless Stone. A pun of disorder, storminess, Ara and oops wow, Ara. It's repeated so the listener is making a mock of Renosuke. I'm mocking him. Yeah, I noticed that as well. Hold on, Automod caught that. I noticed that as well. All of those things mentioned there, they're all in SMT. I remember it because the first time I played Persona 3, I beat it with Kuzi Mitama. Because I did not utilize the fusion mechanic. So I had a level 99. I had a Kuzi Mitama with a magic stat of 99 because all I did was play at the crane game, and it's its best move was the medium AoE wind damage. That was its best move. I beat the game because I had the teach card that let me teach my guy like the full heal moves. So I turned my character into basically a cleric, and I just beat up the final boss with everybody else, and I just kept everybody alive. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I won. I beat the game with Kuzi Matama. The stupid fucking piece of shit. He's like a level 25 fusion. Bro is like boss 3. I didn't trade up. I just got sick of it. I was tired of the fusion mechanic, and I was like, all right, this is my guy for the rest of the game. And I played the rest of the game with Kuzi Matama. I beat the game too. Okay. So that picture was used before, and I'm pretty sure this other he reused pictures. Wait a second, because that's the petrified thing that Reimu brought in. That was used in a different chapter. Hold on. And this other page here, this other picture is definitely from the Petrified Bone chapter. Yeah, this one. So, okay, grab the wrong thing. There you go. These are just straight up from previous chapters. Unbelievable. How dare he reuse... Alright. Well, chat, that was a chapter. Not much to say. Really. Just kind of neat. It's kind of neat, but I don't really have much to say there. We're almost done. There's 2 chapters left. Who is that? Is that medicine? Yeah, that's definitely medicine. That's definitely medicine. I was like, is that Marissa? But no, Marissa's down there. So that's got to be medicine, right? It checks out. It definitely looks like her. Alright. Wait, no, that's Yukari. Wait, that's Yukari. I just read the first line. What is the secret behind the name Yakumo, the yokai that manipulates Gensokyo? That's fucking Yukari. That looks like medicine, dude. Yukari Yakumo, a yokai with great influence in Gensokyo. It's rumored that over 1,000 years ago, she created the barrier with the human world and sealed the shrine maidens in Gensokyo. With the power hidden in her name finally be brought to light. The night the storm clouds rolled in. This is a cool chapter. Alright. Look at that picture. Just as one wonders if the towering summer cumulonimbus clouds would open up with the pouring rain shower, they steal away all the day's muggy warmth, moonlight filtered in the window, obscured by rain. Reimu and Marissa had been at the store all day, but as a sudden evening shower prevented them from going home, they remained for dinner. Yukari's been acting odd lately. Smack. You say that like she wasn't odd to begin with, chomp. Why don't you two try swallowing what's in your mouth before you start talking? Been planning on eating alone tonight, so the menu is meager. I don't eat meals often in the first place. Dinner for me is really just sake and a side of pickled vegetables. A half yokai like myself doesn't really need to eat much to live. It's more for pleasure. If the sake is delicious, that's enough to last me through the night. But that won't do for Reimu and Marissa. If they don't eat regularly, they'll get weak and eventually collapse due to lack of stamina. A lot of foods high in salt content go well with sake and make good snacks. Some rice and something salty would probably perk them right back up for a while. Yukari's been acting odd. You mean that yokai, Yakumo Yukari? I really don't like her. I make my living by collecting things from the outside world, so I really do owe her a lot, since she keeps Gensokyo and the outside world separate, but whenever she's around, it feels like something's looking right through me, and I can't think straight. Yukari's actually been helping me train lately. It's really weird. Helping you train a yokai? That's unusual for a yokai to train a yokai hunter. Seems like she's plotting something. What are you going to do about it, Reimu? It doesn't matter if she's up to something, so I've been training. Since I've been training. Well, if you say so. No matter how you look at it, that just means you're doing exactly what Yukari wants you to do. Gensokyo is a place. It is because of Yukari's ability to control borders. Her power is what separates Gensokyo from the outside world. There really aren't any yokai in Gensokyo who could stand against her. Needless to say, a human probably wouldn't stand a chance either. Yukari Yakumo, huh? Since she probably chose the name Yakumo herself, I guess you have no choice but to bend to her will. Tri-maidens must do as she says. Dinner was finished, so we sat outside and gazed at the moon while sipping sake. The rain had wiped away the traces of the day's heat, and it was a crisp summer evening. It was the best kind of night for watching the moon. But Reimu and Marissa had already taken all the sitting space in front of the entrance, so I stood behind them and enjoyed my sake. Oh, I was drying some clothes at the shrine before I left. I wonder if it'll be all right since we had that storm. Of course they are. It was raining so hard you wouldn't leave. I guess so. I'll probably have to wash them again. By the way, Mr. Inosuke, about what we were talking about earlier, what do you mean I have to do as she says? Well, the name Yukari Yakumo says it all, doesn't it? I have the ability to tell what something's name is just by looking at it. So maybe I go on a little too much about names, thanks to that. You can generally divide names into two categories. There are names that describe an object's characteristics, and names that determine its characteristics. The former are names that generally describe something's shape, color, other external attributes, or in the case of things like tools, their utility. Most animals, plants, and natural objects are named in this fashion. The latter types of names are usually given to those things whose nature hasn't yet been determined, or to those that the namer wishes to merely distinguish from others. The name of people and the personal aims yokai take on fall into this category, as well as the names of most commodities. They're the names that have the most power over a thing, since a person's name has a great effect on the sort of personality they develop. Parents normally give their children names that hold various meanings. They don't just pick names that sound pleasing to the ear. The name Yukari means violet, and violet is the outermost color in the rainbow. In fact, when a dragon flies to the sky, the pair of rainbows it leaves behind appear to be an identical set, but in fact the outermost color is of both is violet. It's true. I've seen two rainbows when I look closely, but I can never quite make out how the colors are arranged. When rainbows appear, they often form in pairs. An inner rainbow that can be seen easily at a glance, and an outer rainbow that is considerably fainter. Quite a few people don't seem to know the order of the colors in each rainbow. From bottom to top, the colors of the inner rainbow are violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. But the outer rainbow goes from red to violet in the reverse order. In other words, it's reversed. So if you put the two rainbows together, from bottom to top, the colors progress from violet to red, and then from red back to violet. The border between the rainbow and the sky is certainly colored violet. Just going by that, her name obviously is a reference to borders, right? But that's just her first name. Her other name, Yakumo, if you take it literally, it refers to the kind of clouds that pile up on themselves in many layers. What do you mean if you take it literally? Well, the word Yakumo isn't used by itself very much. However, it's used quite extensively in the divine land of Izumo. In her case, it's quite likely she's taken it from the verse Yakumo tatsu Izumo yaegaki sumagomi ni yaegaki sukuru sono yaegaki wo. What is that? An incantation? It's a poem that was composed by his divinity, Susanoo, that's said as the first Japanese poem ever written. Quite surprising, isn't it? Huh. I always pictured Susanoo as more violent. I had no idea he wrote poetry. What does that mean? The contents are very simple. In the land of Izumo, covered by beautiful heavenly clouds, I've built a great fenced mansion to let my wife, Kushina Dahime, live in peace and seclusion. So it just means he built a house? Why bother with a poem about something like that? Well, it's because it's the first Japanese poem. The way he repeats the words yaegaki over and over really brings out his merry spirit at having finished that house, don't you think? Seems more foolish to me. Well, what about a shrine maiden calling to what the gods do foolish? Getting to the point, aside from the primary meaning of borders, Yukari Yakumo's name also has the hidden meaning of a strong fortress to keep the gods trapped inside. Now, if you substitute shrine maidens for the gods, it's obviously Gensokyo. Yukari will never let the shrine maidens escape from Gensokyo. Reimu became quiet. She probably had a lot to think about. It's nice enough to sit in silence and drink sake, but you only get so much out of it. So I decided to renew the conversation a different topic. Oh, and speaking of that particular verse, you can see yet another side to it if you say it out loud. Yakumo Tatsu... how did it go again? I forgot. When Marissa said this, I recited it once more. Isn't the sense of rhythm from the repetition of the word yaegari pleasant? And if it goes well with the ya from the very first word, Yakumo. Ya, ya, ya. It's almost too much ya. I wonder why he wrote it that way. Of course, there's a meaning behind it, but the true meaning is hidden in another word pronounced ya. Really? What would that be? Why? The splendid night that always hides itself from the great Amaterasu. The wind had gotten rather cold, as the ground that had dampened earlier that evening dried. It probably caused the wind to pick up. I sipped on my fuel. It didn't cool me down too much, but it did speedily give me rise a new line of thought. After all, if you look at the world the same all the time, you won't get any idea profound in the realm of common sense. I'll try that again. You won't get any ideas more profound than what's in the realm of common sense. The number 8 is actually very closely related to the night. Can't you read both characters as ya? Well, yeah, but you can do the same thing with yakiniku since you eat it all night. You eat it at night, but usually it's pronounced yoru. Isn't that all just a coincidence, though? You might think so if it was just the kanji for night and 8. But what's interesting is that those two words are almost the same in other languages, too. Really? I don't know much about other languages. In English, it's 8 and night. In Latin, it's octo and nocto. In German, it's ach and nacht. Okay. And there's a lot of other languages. 8 and night sound very similar. Are those all coincidences? I don't know much about the countries in the outside world, so why are words for night and 8 so similar? There are a few explanations, but unfortunately no one has a definitive answer. Why are you bringing something like that up you don't even get? It's not that simple. To begin with, the etymology is probably different for each language. Marissa didn't seem satisfied with that answer, so I promised I'd look into it some more. Anyway, we can speculate about why that is in Japanese, at least. The ya, or 8, is in the word Yakumo, yaegari, and yaorozu no kami doesn't literally mean the number 8, but a very large number of something. Now, I hope you'll notice that whatever it's used that way, it's always pronounced ya. Let's see, a great number of hills is Yasaka. When cherry blossoms pile up, it's Yaezakura. The great 8-headed serpent, Yamata no Orochi. It really is pronounced ya whenever it means many. All of these words are very old words that existed before we started to use kanji for writing. You don't say that you have 8 of something in modern Japanese if you want to say that you have a lot. Yeah, it'd be a huge pain to have to make enough food for 8 people. Anyway, my point is that the only reason for this word for many ya was written with a character for 8 is because 8 was a big number. 8 is a big number? Aren't there a lot of bigger numbers? Well, it's true that 9 is a larger digit, but 8 and 9 are both big numbers. However, 9, read as Q, is linked to the Q in AQ, or eternity, so it's been linked to the infinite for a long time. After all, if there are a lot of something, there's still a finite amount, so it's obviously less than infinity. That's why 8, the number 1 less than 9, was given the pronunciation ya, I believe. So you mean the character for 8 wasn't always read ya. What's its connection to the night then? Well, it's the word for night that was originally pronounced ya, not 8. Anything that was incredibly high in number was linked to the night. And that's not all. The Japanese names for numbers hide many more secrets like this. I wonder why the word for a great number of things was the same as the word for the night. To answer that, all you need to do is gaze up to the sky in the moonlight night like this. Isn't it obvious why the word for night came to mean a great many? The clouds that had been giving us the sudden squall earlier in the evening had completely vanished. In their place, the skies against Tokyo were filled with a countless number of stars. Forgetting my sake, I gazed up at the starry sky. The silvery river that flowed through the sky was more than enough to crush any reckless challengers who thought they could count up every star within it. In comparison, the sun floated high in the daytime sky without peer. It's only natural then that the great Amaterasu, that is, the sun, would be worshipped as the highest god. A countless number of stars twinkled in the sky. Their faint light made them seem they had to hide themselves from the sun, all across the world. The night sky expressed how tiny humans must have felt in comparison to the sun, as well as the pain the yokai felt from it. Anyway, I think it'll be okay even if Yukari's planning something, so I guess I'll just have to train. Maybe so. It would be good for you to get more powerful by training, and besides, there was no way to stand up to Yukari, nor was there any reason to do so. Yep. Anyway, I'll probably better go back to the shrine and figure out a new training schedule. But I'd watch that laundry again before that if I were you. That storm probably did a number on it. Oh. Evening storms happen all the time during the summer, even if it's sunny all day. Hanging your laundry out to dry and leaving your house like that is just careless, you know. Well, the laundry was already wet, so what's the harm in a little rain? Maybe you're right. No, that's not it. If you don't take better care of them, your clothes will fall into pieces someday. I suppose with all your Danmaku battles, they're not fated to live long to begin with, but that means you should at least take proper care of them while doing laundry. It's important to value your possessions. Alright, I won't leave the shrine until they're dry tomorrow. I bet they'll dry up in a flash under the summer sun. But if you fall asleep, it'll be just as bad as leaving. The number for 1 can be pronounced hito or hitotsu. When you count 1, 2, 3 as hifu mi, 1 is he. Needless to say, that's the same he as the word for day. In other words, the sun. The Japanese counting system starts out with the sun and goes on to the wind, fu, and the water, mizu. Hifumi. The sky, the earth, and connecting everything to the night. By counting to 9, the Japanese number system includes everything in nature. Even a single number has so many deep meanings to it. So needless to say, a name that incorporates numbers can easily hide very deep meanings. So it's not surprising someone like a strong yokai would do so. It's a huge mistake to think numbers are merely words to measure quantity. If that's what you think, you'd better look at the world around you a little harder. You might start seeing a great number of carefully hidden secrets. The scene Reimu is given a lecture by Yukari is described earlier in Silent Center in Blue. On July 2007 edition of Comic Rex in July 8th, while this chapter was published on October 2007 edition of Dengeki Moyo in August 25th. In Latin, the form as head word is nox, the root noct, not nocto. Nox has no inflectional form as nocto. As you know, Renosuke is choosing linguistics cases as he likes, and the English and German words are derived from Latin to begin with. There are many cases the two words aren't similar to each other, respectively, as in Chinese, where it's ba and then ye. In Russian, vosem and noch. In Finnish, kadek-san and yo. Don't take his point out seriously. Those aren't real languages. Alright. The book has different images of the version on the website. The book uses image 2. Okay. These pictures do not appear in the book. Really? Okay, hold on. Well, let me pull those out. Hold on. 2074 and 2075. So this one. So these images are not on the website, Chad. These images are only in the book. So the exclusive look. Here's your exclusive look. So there's Marissa, and there's Renosuke. I don't know who those are. I'm assuming that's Amaterasu. I can't read the character. But yeah, this chapter. Those two are for chapter 25 instead of the repeats. Oh, this is for the last one. So are there pictures? Are there pictures for this chapter, or they just don't exist? I guess they just don't exist. Alright. Oh. Okay. All right. So these are the pictures. These are the pictures that should have been relevant to the last chapter we read. So Yukari's chapter just doesn't have any images to it. But there you go. That's the chapter. Whoa. I hit undo a few too many times. My bad. My bad. All right. No, anyway. So yeah. So this chapter is all about Yukari's name, and there's a lot of meaning to her name, which I think is very cool. I like that. I like the idea of her name. The idea of her first name, Yukari, which is purple, violet, the and representative of the boundary. But also Ron is neat too, because Ron. So you know Ron. Apparently Ron is can also mean indigo, which is the color closest to violet, and then Chen, which is orange, which is, right next to red. And Reimu is representative on red on that. And then you got Chen, who's the earliest in the rainbow, and then Yukari, the final boss of the rainbow. So I like that their names are all based on colors that would be in the rainbow, and you can see kind of their position. That means when Chen becomes stronger, she will turn blue. Chen will turn blue when she becomes stronger. It's coming. But yeah, also the whole bit with the Yakumo name, I just think it's very fascinating. There's a lot of information and thought that kind of went into Yukari's name, and I like the idea that what Renosuke says, that it's a name that she picked for herself. Obviously, it's a name that Zun gave her, duh. But like the idea that she named herself and she picked that name herself based on these things, and it's fitting for her ability. It's pretty cool. I like that. 8 Cloud Purple. That's her. Well, Yukari also comes back to the whole Lafcadio, Mr. Hearn, right? So there's that as well, but that comes later. There's all kinds of stuff going on, but the explanation here is pretty good, and it makes sense. All right, chat. We have one more chapter, and then we read the afterword, and we are done. It's almost over, and I haven't even fallen asleep yet. Here is Engi Marissa playing cribbage and losing to Reimu, who is master gambler. Do you remember in Genso Wander Foresight when Reimu went gambling and lost all her money, and then Sanyo threw her in the underground mines to make up her debt? I remember that. That was fucked up. Alright. Last chapter. Then we'll read the afterword. The Memories of Dice influences probability and fate. The novelization for the popular Dojin Shmup series now comes to an end. Thank you for your long-time patronage. The world of Touhou will continue in various media in the future. Look forward to the Corriendo compilation book planned for release in spring of 2008. 2008? Friday, April 17th, 2026. Mechanism of Fortune. Assuming you have a die, if you were to roll it on a desk, no one would be able to predict what the result would be. Take the number that came up from that throw to be 1. Now what will happen when the die is cast again? Of course, it usually is impossible to know what will happen, but let's assume some certain conditions. These conditions are ones that match the initial conditions of the dice. In other words, the initial states of positions, angle, and force. What happens then? The dice will dance in the air, rotating as the first time, strike the desk at the same place, the same angle, at the same time, and bounce identically. Matching the exact same conditions may be something that a yokai can do, but it is more difficult for human hands. In that case, you may make a device that could do such a thing. In doing so, the die should once again fall on the same result. That meaning The meaning hidden behind this reality is that if everything in this world reaches a condition identical to one in the past, from then on history will repeat itself. From that point in time, a pre-planned future will arrive. Furthermore, the conditions at the end of this repetition must return to the point in its currently. Perhaps this world has already gone through the same untold number of loops. Ring-a-ling! I was in the middle of my work when the door made a noise that indicated my usual visitors. It is work to confirm whether or not daily life is looping. That task would be writing in my journal. I had begun writing 2 or 3 years ago, and I already had filled several books. I was recording my viewpoint of the structure against Sokyo, and I frankly believe that one day it will become a history book. Maybe it's because yokai live much longer than humans, for they don't much try to record Gensokyo's history. I imagine that it's because of the way that they always have an advantage over humans, and because they want to twist what little history remains to whatever will benefit them. Humans can learn much from history, but the yokai have intentionally stolen this away from them. The yokai that live in the village are solely concerned with enjoying with daily life, and the yokai that live in the mountains only record history for the sake of the other residents there. Humans don't have much time to put together any history. It's practically as the history against Sokyo has yet to begin. I am writing a journal for both human and yokai. I intend for it to become an unabridged history book of Gensokyo. It will be a breath of fresh air into the ordinary lives of both humans and yokai that live in Gensokyo. But man, that was a big haul today, wasn't it? I don't think I'll ever see something like that ever again. You're exaggerating. It's like that around this time of year, every year. Both Marissa and Reimu enter the store, brushing falling leaves from their shoulders and hats. A few years ago, the phantoms began increasing in number at the turn of the season. Since then, Reimu and Marissa's phantom herding had become a yearly occurrence. I can faintly remember this infestation happening every year. I suppose history is repeating in this world, after all. How did the phantom extermination go? Have their numbers decreased a little? We had our hands full of them. It's the same as always. I wonder if I should come up with a countermeasure. There's more of them every year. If they don't cause any real damage, then just leave them alone. But anyway, phantoms are cheerful beings, so throwing a party or festival would gather them in one place. If you're talking about damage, then there is some. What would that be? You can't eat phantoms. I believe it was over 60 years ago. There was a time where phantoms had increased in numbers, just like they are now. Gensokyo had since then given up changing and had built a peaceful life. Stable and resistant to change, trying to preserve the current status quo is called peace. Gensokyo today exists in a similar peace. To those days from 60 years ago, history is repeated over 60 years cycles. In other words, everything in the future 60 years may be rather nostalgic. Don't you have a phantom traps in your shop? Something you can just leave somewhere that will catch phantoms or something? It's difficult to catch something that has nothing to catch onto, and they just slip through the boxes and things like that. But I have to do something about them. If more keeps showing up, this world might become like the next world. It'll be fine. The phantoms will settle down after a while. The future is predetermined like that. Reimu gave me a dubious expression. The vampires and yokai say the same thing you do. Phantoms will appear in public places, but they don't show up at my store often. To begin with, phantoms tend to gather easily where there is a lot of commotion. This is because of phantoms' transient nature, where they may vanish at any moment. And so they gather at a lively place where it is easier for them to really feel their own existence. It is likely just as when they were human, preferring to be in crowds of people. There's no way the future is predetermined. Some people's lives are supported by Some people's lives are supported just by luck, Marissa said, looking at Reimu. Well, rather than just by luck, it's intuition. And that intuition is an intuition with a proper foundation. Marissa's expression said that she didn't believe her. Whenever we play Chin Chin no Ring at parties, I always found the face of the die to the point where there's no longer any competition. How can you say there's foundation for that? Chin Chiro Ring. Ah, the simple game played with dice. Feasts and gambling. It's like the world of crime. Marissa, I believe the reason why Rainbow can guess the outcome of dice rolls must be because she can calculate in an instant the predetermined future. I told them my idea about the mechanism by which the outcome of dice was set. Perhaps after seeing the initial conditions, Rainbow can calculate the result of the dice by her intuition. Within this world, good luck is that sort of thing. That's not it at all, Mr. Minosuke. No matter how you slice it, you couldn't do that kind of calculation just by looking at the dice. Calculating people only think with probabilities. Besides, even if they did calculate, the result wouldn't go exactly as they thought. Why do you think so? Well, I suppose you couldn't do that. Wouldn't it still let you tell the future if you could? Reimu looked shocked. Since I seems to have a deeper understanding of fortune, today I'll be doing the lecturing on the mechanism of probability, and while I'm at it, I'll also show that the future is not predetermined. After saying this, Reimu brewed tea for the three of us and gladly served it. We looked forward to hearing the reason behind the quality of Reimu's intuition. I brought the tea to my lips, forgetting to cool it. So what you're saying is that even if the initial condition of the dice are the same, it's possible to get different results. Of course I am. Those aren't the only things deciding the outcome. Reimu's tale wasn't a difficult one, but there was a shocking truth contained therein. According to her, the world is made up of 3 layers. First is the physical layer that moves in accordance with the laws of physics, including all living things, objects, etc. It is on this layer that an object falls towards the ground and that the water of the river flows. The second layer is on the moves with the spirit. Good. Okay. Which includes things such as magic and sorcery, the mental layer, one's mood turning sour when meeting an unpleasant person, and releasing all your stress and cares during a party lie here. Since most yokai conceive of the world just through the physical and mental layers, they ridiculously say that history repeats itself and the future is predetermined. But according to Reimu, there is a third layer that rejects loops. The third layer is the layer of memory, which is the recollection of events that lies within all things. Since it's only possible to add to the memory layer, it's impossible to completely recreate the past. If something were to happen that already occurred in the past, then there would be a contradiction because that would imply that memory was lost, which is impossible. The memory layer always continues to build up. The physical layer follows the laws of physics, the mental layer interprets the outcomes, and the memory layer alters probability, mutually creating the future. Since it's impossible for memories to reach the same state as a point in the past, the future is not predetermined. So, taking a die rolling a 1 as an example, if you were to throw it again with the same initial conditions as before, since the die remembers the previous outcome, it won't necessarily be the same probability. I followed her explanation up to that point, but then Marissa asked, so how are you able to predict how the dice will fall? While I was entranced by Rainbow's new illustration of the world, Marissa was unfazed. Okay. I didn't think she wanted to know just how to beat Reimu at Chinchirorin, but to use that idea to become as lucky as Reimu. I'm not predicting the fall of the dice. The dice remembers the fact that I predicted how the dice would fall. According to this, by the lucky card called Reimu entering the memory of the die face, the result greatly skews in Reimu's favor. Apparently, the results side with Reimu. What? How is that going to help anyone but those who are already lucky? Marissa sulked. I doubted the existence of such a thing as fortune in this world. Existence of things such as fortune in this world, thinking it seemed like a lie. This was largely because of me thinking that the future was predetermined. I saw good luck charms as nothing more than lumps of sophistry. However, upon listening to Reimu's words, I have reaffirmed the existence of fortune. The blessed man and the cursed man both exist, certainly. There is a man that succeeds in shouldering his trials. There is a man that is a failure, captive by jinxes as well. It might certainly be reckless to think of each one as merely becoming the initial conditions. If we assume that probability is determined by the power of memory, it may be natural that the probability can be manipulated by the power of good luck charms. The more complicated and unusual the origins are, the more memories a charm will have, thereby raising its effectiveness. Reimu added to this, in this world both objects and souls are made up of probability, and are determined by the fortune which memories hold. Hearing those words, I remembered something. It is already common knowledge that everything in the world exists by probabilities. Something along those lines was written in a science textbook from the outside world. I recall having only a vague comprehension of its meaning, and I didn't understand who determines the outcome of these probabilities. But Ramo had thought the same kind of thing and even realized that it's memories which hold the right to determine those possibilities. It was surprising. Memories determines probabilities. In other words, you could say it's karma. That's pretty amazing. It may very well be true. By the way, how did you come across this knowledge? Your lifestyle appears so idle, I was about to add, but to preserve the current subject, I changed my mind. I heard it from a really, really smart human. If you say it like that, it makes you sound dumb, Marissa muttered. I wondered if there was any human against Sokyo who knew the roots of the world like that. The reason why it feels like history repeats itself to yokai is purely because they aren't human. For humans, the thread of memory vanishes after only a short while. So from the perspective of yokai, humans, from the time they are born until they die, seem to just repeat the same things. Just like you, Mr. Minosuke, Reimu said smugly. The situation is usually reversed, so I was a bit frustrated. And this really, really smart human has the memories of all the books stored by her ancestors for generations, so she can see a world that neither humans with few memories nor yokai who have lived for a long time understand. It seems we have been talking for a long time. The color of the window had already changed to match the color of the evening. The autumnal tint of the leaves outside had begun to permeate the room. Even though the sun is beginning to set, did you have any business for coming here today? Oh, that's right. We came here today for one reason. We've chased out of the phantoms, so from now on, we're having a party at the shrine. We came here to invite you. What do you say, Corin? I see. It took quite a while for it to come to this. They didn't announce why they were here, and we thought this ended up talking for longer than expected. I appreciate the thought, but I still have an important job to do. And besides, if you play Chinchiroririn, I doubt I won't be able to match for Reimu. Job? You mean writing your book? Okay. Still writing? Marissa said while pointing at my journal. That's true, but I also have the 10 in my store as well. So you're still writing that thing, huh? Thought you would have given up on that by now. It's a journal, but someday it will become a history book. I cannot stop so easily. This will be a history book that enriches human knowledge, a product of Korindo. A number of years ago, I started writing this journal since paper had become an easily obtainable commodity, and now I have a considerable amount stored up. I plan on compiling all into one book to pass down these records. If the books become the history book of Gensokyo, the Academia of Gensokyo will begin to move rapidly. This will bring Gensokyo closer to the outside world, and will become a secure place in the future. At the same time, if it sells well, the shop will also be more secure. And today I learned about the mechanisms of how reality can be determined from randomness. While there is a difference in the amount of fortune between people, that there are people who know this truth, unusually I was able to learn from Reimu. I should note that not records but memories determine the future concept is in my book. And then if my memory of reading it acts as a mechanism of fate of that person, I imagine the future will become something unpredictable. Humans will travel towards a future even yokai can't anticipate, and it would be good if yokai are able to enjoy the future the way humans do, not knowing what will happen tomorrow. It's hard. It had become completely dark outside. I wonder if Reimu and Marissa are holding a party at the shrine by now. With the same people as always, drinking sake as always, with Reimu winning the bets as always, and drinking too much as always. However, this world is not repeating itself, because Reimu, Marissa, the yokai, and myself, the half-human, half-yokai, remember these things, because these memories make every day more enjoyable, little by little. The 60-year cycle of world circulation, Phantasmagoria Flyer Press chapter, is supposed to show the idea of 60-year cycle of evidence, also known as Silo or 456, a simple dice game involving rolling 3 die. Combination of 456 resulted in an immediate win for the roller, assuming nobody else matches his roll. They later refer explicitly to karma in the Buddhist sense as one of the 5 aspects of being that connects you to the form of a karmic history or memory that tracks the result outcomes of your actions. This is the 3rd layer that Reimu speaks of, the quantum uncertainty. This chapter implies the advertising effect that Rinosuke's diary is going to be published. In fact, which was planned to publish the book of this novel, which was abandoned due to the copyright of several publishing companies. Rinosuke starts diary in chapter 17, so we can see the release of Rinosuke's story. Alright, let's take a look at those last images. Right here. 4x plus 2y equals WS. Chat. What does that mean? What does that mean? What is the answer to that equation? What's X? What's Y? What's W? What's S? I didn't study. I didn't know there'd be a test. Mean muggin'. Alright. Now, let's conclude with the afterword. Nice to meet you, Zun here. Suspended from several serial publications, changed into an internet serialization, and somehow continuing through the jumps from publisher to publisher, the mysterious short story collection Curiosities of Lotus Asia has finally reached book format. It even includes the story I contributed to a doujinshi. This is quoted into his first novel. Oh, is he referring to the seasonal dream vision novel from about Yukari in the 60 years? Is that included in the book as well? I wrote this story to progress with the main plot of the games, but there might have been parts that were too difficult to understand while it was being serialized. Even if it never crossed the reader's mind, I greatly enjoyed writing this story. While rereading Cola's first story, I noticed I set up a lot of ideas. I guess it's best for me to deal with the finer details of the world through short stories. Each story doesn't particularly feel like it's part of one big overarching plot, and the final chapter doesn't particularly have a feeling of closure. At the heart of Cola is how the humans against Sokyo handle their surroundings, and it could continue even now just the same. It's written like it could continue at any time, and it seems like I would if given the chance. He did, by the way, with Strange Creators. Strange Creators started doing Curiosities chapters with them, so there's 9 additional chapters that started releasing after like 2015, I think. So about 8 years after this finalized. The fact is that having a character who is bad at physical combat is annoying, and having a great number of characters in the same place is troublesome. It begins to be like making fun of argumentative people. It's hard to like that kind of story, but people can relate to a character like Rinosuke. So writing the story becomes more enjoyable. This is because of Rinosuke's character not to think about other people. You hear that? People can relate to Rinosuke. Can you relate to Rinosuke? Chat? Can you relate to Rinosuke? He's so me. Rinosuke started writing a book in the 17th chapter, The Price of Paper in Luoyang. At the exact same time, talks about standalone books were looking favorable and a first volume was planned. Those with keen senses might have picked up on hints of Rinosuke's book being included with the first volume. However, just before it was released, the publisher went bankrupt. But ASCII Media Works picked up the series, and I was somehow able to continue on. But because of that, we were back to square one as far as a book went. This naturally delayed release quite a bit. Well, it was a miracle that I was able to continue the story anyway, so I was certainly fairly certain that a book would happen sooner or later. By the way, Rinosuke's supposed vast storage of knowledge comes almost entirely out of thin air. Indeed, he doesn't know nearly as much as he thinks he does. If you read closely, you'll notice a lot of wild meta ideas, but I think that's supposed to be the joke. Team Shanghai Alice Zun. I get the feeling there are a lot of winter scenes in Cola for some reason. And that's it. That is Curiosities of Lotus Asia. Now, there's a story. I kind of want to wish I had that. There's a story about this, but as you saw, the fact that Cola kind of exists in a finite, like a final state, is pretty impressive. But I'm pretty sure Cola got its start in a more shoujo-centric magazine. So basically a magazine more orientated towards women, if I remember that correctly. I don't know if that's the reason why he chose his main character to be a handsome yogurt male, but you know, why else would the series that's like, we're doing women, suddenly have the opposite of a woman? But yeah, as he says here, the original publisher of Cola went bankrupt, and the series got picked up by a different company. And so he could continue writing it, but they couldn't. The whole book deal came, came later. I wish I had a more like cohesive timeline of kind of the existence of cola and how it came to be, because there's a lot of that. I don't really know how these publishing things work, but since they publish them like per chapter, if things happen in the middle of serialization, I imagine when series don't do well, they don't perform well, they get told to wrap up early. It's kind of like you're constantly in a battle of gauging viewer reception, and if viewer reception is good, then you get to do more, and if viewer reception is bad, then you gotta speed up. You gotta speed up or just flat out get canceled. But who knows? Who knows? But that was Curiosities of Lotus Asia chat. What'd you think? There's a lot about this book that I think is incredibly boring, and it doesn't stick in your mind. But every now and again, you get a chapter that's very interesting and actually has some lasting aspects of the series to this day that, while not fully explored, is touched on enough to make you go, neat. But that's it. It's done. Now you can no longer sleep. We can no longer sleep. We pretend the rest of the chapters don't exist. So I said this the first time, second time, maybe even the third time, but I'll say it a fourth time. I'm only reading the stuff of Cola that goes up to Strange Creators because this is what the original series was. That's why we're on an afterward. Everything after this is just a Sumireko show. I ain't reading that. Also, those don't end. There's no ending to Cola right now. Granted, he does mention in this afterword here that there is no ending to begin with. Cola can just go on. The final chapter is barely a final chapter. But it is the original final chapter of Cola. That is where Cola ended. Everything that happens in chapter 28 happens like 8 years later. New characters, new settings, and a whole new opinion. Currently the latest chapter of Cola, if it is still the latest chapter of Cola, is about Sumireko spending 6 months developing an AI. And that's the chapter. There you go. Interesting? No. Relevant? Maybe. Stupid? Very. Yeah, Sumireko wasn't coming against Sokyo for 6 months, and the reason is because she was getting really shitty sleep because she spent 6 months developing an AI. Yep. Real, by the way. So, we're stopping. A new one got translated recently with her and Nina. Oh, man. Yeah, definitely. Definitely want to hear what Nina has to say. A character born out of fucking conspiracy theories. Yep, I'm sure whatever she's got to say is definitely not going to be the ramblings of an angry old man. Whatever. We're done with Cola. We're done with Cola. Next time, chat. Next time, next book. Maybe not next week, but next book we do. I believe is Bunkasho. I think. It should be. Yeah. It should be Bunkacho followed by Perfect Memento and Strict Sense. I think. That might actually be reversed. I don't remember. Either way, those ones will be better. They're going to be more like reading about events and learning about characters. There's something about Curiosities that is different, is that it really just focuses on one guy. But the other books focus, even though it's kind of the perspective of one character, it focuses on so many more characters. And like Aku focuses on just like the characters, what they're known for, and aspects of them, which is interesting. And Aya focuses on different events that involve them, and also has post-article interviews, which gives more characterization. So what's good about those books is you get more characterization on other characters. Cola's kind of just like the Renosuke club. You get Renosuke, you get Marissa, you get Reimu. You get a little bit of Sakuya, you get a little bit of Remy, you get a little bit of Yomu, and you get a little bit of Yukari. And you basically get nothing else. No other character gets anything. Now, the stuff you do get is very interesting, and it's pretty great to have a lot of extra stuff geared towards the protagonists, Reimu and Marissa. Of course, that's great. But, you know, it's 27 chapters of the Renosuke Club. That's a long read, dude. Tokiko. Yeah, but Tokiko's not real. You gotta keep that in mind. She's not real. Tokiko only exists because there was an era where people were fucking grasping at straws for new Touhou characters because they just wanted as many as they could. And then Tokiko appeared and like, oh my god, new character! Yeah, so tune in next time, chat. Tune in next time. I will be reading Aya's articles. If you enjoyed this, you'll want to see that. If you didn't enjoy this, you'll probably still want to see that because it will be better than this. But thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you with the next story.